What's going on, YouTube? I am Ranger Not Available, or Aiden. And today I'm going to kind of talk about why I got into guitar. Also, sorry, I do record outside to kind of get rid of most of the outside noise or inside noise or whatever. Noises that aren't my voice. So if you hear some locusts or cicadas or whatever, they are pretty loud for me. Hopefully they're not all that loud for you. But for now, I guess let's begin. So, for a lot of people, guitar is an instrument. But for me, it's kind of how I express my art. But it didn't really start just because I wanted to be a musician. At least, not exactly. Back in the day, and even still now, people wanted to be astronauts. And the kind of the modern equivalent of that is like content creators. They want to be YouTubers or TikTokers or whatever, you know? Like, they want to be what's in pop culture. I grew up in the early 2000s, but I also grew up with my grandparents because my mother was at college and my father left when I was very, very young. But because I grew up with my grandparents, I got really into older music, especially stuff like 70s and 80s rock and roll. And bands like Ozzy Osbourne or the Beatles or the Eagles or Bon Jovi was a big influence. Some Journey, that kind of stuff. And I still love all that old music. It still has that soul that I feel a lot of newer music doesn't. But for me, I never wanted to be an astronaut or a race car driver or, I mean, I'm not gonna say I didn't want to become a content creator because obviously I'm here. But the first thing that like truly captivated me was I wanted to be a rock star. I wanted to be on the big stage with an electric guitar, screaming out ballads or just playing super fast guitar. And for years and years and years, it was just a dream. And sure, it is still just a dream. But the difference between then and now is then I just wanted to be a rock star. I wanted to play guitar. I wanted to sing. I wanted to have all the big pyrotechnic work, and I still don't do any of that. That scares me now. But you know, like being a rock star was what was like my dream job, I guess. Some people wanted to go to space. Others wanted to post their whole lives. But me, I just wanted to be a rock star. And I told part of the story of how I really started learning guitar. I believe it was either the last story or the story right before. I think it was my last story. But it involves my uncle, and I don't want to retell it because it's going to take forever. So you can go watch the other video, the one that came out before this one, if you want to really learn that story. But that's not where my true guitar playing started. It's close to it. but it's not exactly where it started. Let's see, when would it have been? I think it would have been 5th grade year or 4th grade year. So what? I would have been 10 or 11 maybe. And my grandparents, who I'm still obviously very close with, got me and my brother each an acoustic guitar, not an electric guitar, because those are a little more expensive, or at least they were then. Not saying guitars are cheap now, but I mean, they're as accessible as they've ever been, really. But we got acoustic guitars, steel string acoustics. They're 3/4 size, but they still felt like full-size guitars. Of course, I've always been a really big guy. I mean, look at me. I'm sitting down, but I am like 6'2", which is pretty darn big, especially for my area. But I've always been on the bigger side. So I could have honestly probably started on a full-size acoustic or electric. Wouldn't have mattered, really. But when I started out, I couldn't play chords because I didn't know what I was doing. I made basically all the beginner mistakes, but I never had a teacher. And I've still never really had a teacher for guitar. I'm mostly self-taught. So I didn't know the chords, but I also didn't know, like, how to play chords even. I made the first beginner mistake in trying to press on the frets instead of behind them. So I never really learned how to do chords until much later. I think skip maybe another year and I do a wax museum performance thing where we dressed up as a person from history, and that person from history became like or like we wrote like a speech, quote unquote, about them told from the first person. And I did Elvis Presley because, of course, I love rock music, and he was like, I don't want to say he was the first rock star because you have other people who also kind of share that like whole thing. But if you think of like a super famous person in early rock and roll, Elvis is one of the like true first people you think of. He's one of the like biggest names at the time. He's like the Michael Jackson of the time. So I decided, and he was my great-grandmother's favorite singer. So I did Elvis. I dressed up, I had sunglasses with sideburns. Of course, I was in 6th grade. I didn't have the full beard yet. Yeah, so that was my 6th grade year. And then I think it was either 7th grade or 8th grade where I kept trying, but I just couldn't stick with guitar playing, you know? So I kind of gave up on it. I really wasn't like a super good mental state during 7th and 8th grade. But at that end of 8th grade, something clicked in my head because I saw the old guitar body. And I think I'll tell that story later today. As of the coming out of this video, I'll tell it later today. But it's not going to be a long story, but that's besides the point. It was a guitar body that no one was going to take and I didn't have to pay for. And I believe I said something about it in my first video, but I've always been pretty broke. And my family's not necessarily been poor, but we couldn't spend a bunch of money on everything. We were in basically the dead center of middle class for the longest time. And to this day, like, I'm still, because I was raised in that, I'm still very cautious in how I spend my money. But that's neither here or there. And that's actually part of the impact of why those acoustic guitars are so much to me, like, mean so much to me. But that guitar body, I was able to take it home for free, which I loved. And over that summer, my not grandfather, I mean, he helped for sure. He's helped with a lot of my projects. My uncle and I built that guitar, and it turned out really good. I got a little Vox headphone amp, and I found it was like an old computer speaker or something with an 1/8" jack, and like, I think it had like a DC barrel plug to power it, and it didn't sound good, but we made it work. And that was a really important part of me getting to where I am when it comes to guitar stuff. Eventually, I did break the nut of the guitar, so I couldn't really play it with chords and whatnot for a long time. And of course, I did eventually replace the neck, not just because I wanted it to be a little fancier, have a Tree of Life inlay, but also because I wanted it to be fixed. I wanted it to have a new nut, and when I went to replace the nut the first time, I didn't know what I was doing, so I accidentally ended up shortening the scale length, but I didn't change the frets at all, so it didn't work. Not to mention the fact that the nut was super high, but again, neither here nor there. After that, though, I convinced my brother to get an electric guitar, and we got mosquitoes out here. I convinced my brother to get an electric guitar, and he started playing, and then he got better and better, and the way we both started, really, was, believe it or not, with Simply Guitar. He decided to take the lead route, while I went more for, like, the rhythm route. So I know a lot more chords than he does and how chords work a little better, whereas he can play a little faster than I can. He did more scales and things like that. Sorry, it's late when I record these, so there's very little noise. But we started playing together, and soon enough, I got another guitar. What was my second electric guitar? I want to say it was either my Red SG or it could have also been, no. Could it have been? It could have been Cutting Edge too. I'm not exactly sure, but it was either, I think it was my SG, because I remember playing that thing so much. But I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to really look back through my photos. But that was like freshman year, I think, when I started playing guitar and I started building them again. Actually, technically, I think I started building them again sophomore year. So it might have been my Red SG that I got. And that's why I played it so much. Yeah, I think it was. But yeah, we kept playing. Eventually, our subscription to Simply Guitar ended. after it was a year, and I had played a lot, and I'd learned a lot, at least enough to get me like kick-started. And then the rest of everything I've learned has been through either YouTube or like learning it through just finding things out, you know? And just watching. It's not for everybody, but it worked for me. And because of my love of guitar, and because I built one, but I wasn't super satisfied with it, because again, I broke the nut. Like, at some point I had broken the neck off of it. Like, there was a lot of problems with it. So at some point, I had really stopped playing my original guitar, and I thought, well, I made that one, and I want to play it more, I just don't. But then I decided, hey, I'm going to try again, but I want to make it how I wanted it. And that was, I think, even after I started work on my cousin's guitar, Project Rose Gold. His guitar turned out okay, but that was still when I didn't really know much, really anything, honestly, about guitar. So, like, I'm trying to think of what I messed up, because I messed up a lot. The thing that caused me the most problems, I wired the output jack backwards. I put 2 separate things from CB Giddy in them, and only one of them ended up working because I wired the other one wrong, and I don't even know if it still works because I wired it so wrong. The switch I had wired backwards or just wrong several times. The pickups were in the wrong spots, and the real biggest problem I have, or like had with it, it's pretty bad, is I got the scale length completely wrong. It's way too long for the frets, so you can't play it in tune. Which kind of is, knowing now, is kind of upsetting to me, but my cousin really doesn't play guitar as much, but, you know, it is what it is. Or I guess, so you know, it is what it is, but whatever. Neither here nor there. You know what I mean. And after that, I decided, hey, I want to try again for my first guitar. And so I decided to build Cutting Edge. It was originally not going to be a double cut telly. It was supposed to be a mirrored either Jazzmaster or Jaguar, but I couldn't get it to work how I wanted it to. And the guy who had made the original body had built, or like he had used the CNC for it, and he had exactly one file left on the computer, and it was for a Telecaster. But I wanted it to have a double cut, and I wanted it to have a trem system. So I had to do the math for the trem system, and I got it right. And then all I had to do is mirror it. So I mirrored the entire guitar to get 2 cutaways. And that's exactly what I did. And after that, I used the CNC to cut it out, and it turned out like perfect. Like, I still play Cutting Edge, and Cutting Edge is like probably my most played guitar. You can look at the back of the neck, compared to Project Lido, because they have the same necks. I haven't played Lido a lot because it's a new guitar, but it has like a satin finish. I've played Cutting Edge so much that I've worn it into a gloss. It's a full gloss now, and that's one of the most amazing things that I think I've really done. Is I've learned so much, not necessarily on my own, but basically on my own, because again, I've never had an actual guitar teacher. I've learned mostly off of YouTube and Simply Guitar, and Simply Guitar sucks. Like, it taught me how not to play, basically. And like chord shapes, basic chord shapes. But through all that, it became something that allowed me to basically achieve my dream. I'm not a rock star. I'm not super famous, but part of it, the whole mythos of it, was playing electric guitar. I have a giant Marshall. Sure, it's not a super expensive one. It's a Marshall on top of a B-52 4x12 or something like that, and it's a really cool feeling, and it's it's just important to me that all of this came all the way around for me. And yeah, it's just kind of a cool thing. Well, guys, I've kind of kept you on this hook for quite a while. So until next time, I'm Ranger Not Available, but you can call me Aiden. And I will see you all in the next one. Peace and love, and goodbye.